Today, we're really focused on interpretive competence. So this is how we label, organize, and make sense of the information and the world around us. And this is completely essential to interpersonal interaction, right? Can you imagine if you couldn't really make sense of the messages and the information coming at you, how poorly you would communicate back with people? So to communicate effectively, we have to understand the situations in which we find ourselves communicating. So a really important cognitive structure to understand is this idea of schema. And I think of schema as boxes in my brain where I store different information, right? So I have a schema in my brain for students, communication students, students of other majors, right? Different boxes getting smaller and smaller where I store information about what those people tend to be like. And that helps me interact with you. It helps me create videos like this. And so they're cognitive structures, schema are, that help us make sense of the world. They're mental guidelines that allow us to perceive the world and act in it. They can be on different topics. So things, I was talking about groups of people, right? Students. They can also be about specific people. They could be about roles. So what should friends be like? I might have a schema, a box for information about what friends are like based on all the experience I've ever had with my friends, based on what I've seen on TV. When we've got a lot of different information coming at us, we use these schema, or these shortcuts, to help us make sense of what's going on and know what to say and do next. So schema help us recall relevant information to help us make sense of the situation. They help us process information faster so we don't have to think and learn and figure out new information every single time. We can compare it to the schema. And they guide our inferences and judgments about other people and about roles and groups of people. They help us interpret things that are ambiguous and may otherwise be hard to figure out. So now I'm going to talk about some different specific schemas. Personal constructs are mental representations of attributes we assign to people. So things like tall, kind, smart, athletic. These are personal constructs. We have ideas and images attached to each of those, and we apply them to different people. So people who are smart are like this, people who are tall are like this, and they allow us to describe unique characteristics about people to start to piece together who they are and make sense of them. Prototypes are mental categories that we use to classify and label people. So unlike smart, tall, funny, these are things like jerk or nerd or jock. So stereotypes are mental structures that allow us to predict how someone is going to behave based on their group membership. So we form stereotypes about different groups that help us make sense of who they are, predict their behavior, and figure out how to interact with them. So stereotypes can certainly be bad and used to dismiss people, not give them a fair chance, but they're also actually a really cool brain shortcut that we use. So role schema talk about the rules, the norms, and the behavioral expectations associated with different roles. So for example, I might say, how is a boss, because that's a type of role, right, supposed to act? I would pull all that information out of my boss schema in order to figure out how I should act if I'm the boss, or if I'm interacting with my boss, how should she be acting? What kind of behavior would be surprising coming from her? How can I, kind of better prepare for an interaction with her? Relational schema, on the other hand, is kind of the same thing, but about relationships. So talking about mother-daughter pairs, right? So how are mothers supposed to act towards daughters? How is this relationship supposed to work? That all fits into my relational schema. We've got schema about social situations, so things like event schema, so expectations for different kinds of events. So things like, if you think about the difference between an event like a dinner party or a fraternity party. These are two parties, but very different things are going to be happening there. I would dress differently for these different events. The topics coming up at these different events might look really different. And so my event schema would help me prepare for either of those situations and help me be a better communicator based on what I know about those situations.